I used to think trading was about strategy, about finding the right setup, the perfect entry, the flawless system. But the deeper I went, the more I realized it was never about the market. It was about me. Every candle tested not my analysis, but my patience. Every loss revealed not a flaw in my system, but a crack in my discipline. Every win tempted me to break the very rules that created it. This is not a story about charts or entries or exits. This is a story about the mind behind them, the voice that tells you to close too early, the fear that whispers when price pulls back, the illusion that control equals safety. But control isn't mastery. Patience is. Because trading doesn't reward those who act the fastest. It rewards those who can wait the longest without losing their center. So if you've ever watched a winning trade turn against you, if you've ever closed too soon or held too long, if you've ever felt that silent war between fear and faith, this is your story too. Welcome to Mind Over Markets. I've spent years staring at charts, watching candles rise and fall like waves in a storm. At first I thought trading was about prediction, about being right. But the more I traded, the more I realized it was never about knowing where the market would go. It was about knowing how long I could stay still while it decided. There's a strange kind of pain in waiting. When you're in a trade and price hovers just below your target, every tick feels personal. Every small pullback feels like betrayal. You start hearing whispers in your head, take it now. Don't let it disappear. Secure it. But you know that voice. That voice isn't wisdom. It's fear. I've learned that patience in trading isn't passive. It's not about doing nothing. It's about enduring the storm inside your own mind while the market tests your resolve. It's about holding when every cell in your body screams to fold. They call it discipline. But discipline isn't some rigid force of will. It's surrender not to the market, but to the plan you wrote when your mind was clear. It's choosing to trust that version of yourself instead of the frightened one, holding the mouse right now. The hardest part isn't losing. It's knowing you exited too early and watching the price run exactly as you predicted. It's that quiet ache in your chest, that mix of regret and self-doubt. You start questioning everything, your system, your skills, your worth. But it wasn't your strategy that failed. It was your capacity to wait. Every trade tests your relationship with uncertainty. You think you're fighting the market, but you're fighting your biology. Your nervous system is built to seek safety, to avoid pain, to act when you feel threatened. And the flashing candles, they are threats at least to your ancient brain. Red means danger, green means opportunity. But markets don't reward those instincts, they punish them. I used to stare at my open positions like they were verdicts on who I was. A red candle meant I was wrong. A green one meant I was worthy. It took me years to realize the market doesn't care who I am. It doesn't reward virtue or punish ego. It simply mirrors my inner state. If I'm impatient, the market gives me volatility. If I'm greedy, it gives me false hope. If I'm fearful, it delivers exactly the scenario I'm most afraid of. It's almost poetic, like it's trying to teach me through repetition. Every time I fold early, it runs. Every time I overstay, it reverses. And every time I promise myself next time, I'll wait. But promises mean nothing when fear returns. Patience is not about waiting longer. It's about waiting better. It's about transforming waiting from suffering into observation. You watch your thoughts like you watch the chart. You learn to recognize the impulse to act not as truth, but as noise. The patience drill I've built for myself didn't start as a strategy. It started as survival. I would enter a trade, set my stop and my target, and then walk away. At first it felt unbearable, like leaving a child alone in traffic. I'd check my phone every minute, feel my pulse quicken, my breath shallow. I wanted control, but that's exactly what patience destroys, the illusion of control. The more I forced myself to sit still, the more I started noticing the patterns. Not in the market, in myself. I could feel when my body tensed as price approached resistance. I could feel the adrenaline when unrealized profits appeared. And I could feel the exact moment my rational mind began losing the fight. That's when I knew trading wasn't a game of analysis. It was a mirror. It showed me how I dealt with waiting, uncertainty, and powerlessness. They say trading reveals your character. I think it creates it. Because every moment you hold through discomfort, every time you choose discipline over impulse, you carve a new neural pathway. You're literally rewiring your brain for patience. The market rewards that kind of wiring. It rewards those who can hold when others panic. It rewards those who see beyond the noise, who wait for probability to play out. But most of all, it rewards those who can be still. The truth is, I used to think patience meant trusting the market. Now I know it means trusting myself, because patience is faith not in price action, but in your preparation. When you fold too early, you're saying, I don't trust the plan I built. When you hold through fear, you're saying, I believe in the process. And belief, that's what separates a gambler from a trader. Not skill, not knowledge, belief. The calm conviction that time is not your enemy, but your ally. Every candle, every second, every fluctuation, they all test that belief. Do you trust the math? Do you trust your stop loss? Do you trust your ability to sit through discomfort without trying to fix it? Most traders fail not because they can't analyze. They fail because they can't wait, because they mistake movement for progress and silence for weakness. But silence is where mastery grows, in the pause between impulses, in the breath between decisions. So I started practicing that pause. Every time I wanted to close a trade early, I'd take a deep breath and ask, am I closing this because the setup changed? Or because I can't stand the feeling of not knowing? Most times it was the latter. And every time I noticed that I grew a little stronger. The patience drill is simple but brutal. You set your entry, stop, and target. You do your analysis. You click buy or sell, and then you leave it alone. You let the market do its part. You don't touch it. You don't move stops. You don't chase. You just observe your own reaction to waiting. Because the goal isn't to make money. It's to master the art of not interfering. You see, discipline isn't about control. It's about surrender. And surrender feels like death to the ego, the part of you that wants to be right, that wants to be in charge, that wants to do something. But every moment you surrender that urge, you reclaim power from it. You start to realize that doing nothing can be the most powerful action in trading. Patience doesn't make you passive. It makes you precise. You learn to act only when action is required, and to rest in silence the rest of the time. As I sat in front of those charts day after day, I began to notice that the market wasn't the thing moving. I was. My emotions, my heartbeat, my thoughts, they danced with every tick. It wasn't price that was volatile. It was me. I used to think patience was about waiting for the market to move. But now I see patience is about letting your mind stop moving. Because when your mind quiets, the market becomes simple again. Not easy, but simple. I remember one trade vividly. It was a clean setup, perfect confluence, clear risk to reward textbook entry. I placed it with confidence, then watched as price moved in my favor. 1 hour in, I was up 1 R. My target was 3. I should have been calm, but instead I felt a tremor in my chest. A subtle tension behind the ribs, like my body was whispering, "Take it now. Don't be greedy." That whisper grew louder with each passing minute. The closer the trade got to my target, the less I trusted it. I began imagining all the ways it could reverse. I started seeing ghosts in every candle, and eventually I closed at 1.5 R, locked in. 10 minutes later, price exploded right to my target, 3 R. The plan had worked perfectly. But I wasn't celebrating. I was staring at the screen in silence, a mix of anger and shame rising inside me. That's when I realized I wasn't trading the market. I was trading my feelings about uncertainty. Every early exit, every overextended hold, every emotional entry, they all had the same root: a need to end discomfort, a need to feel safe. That's all impatience is, a craving for relief. When you hold through discomfort, you're teaching your nervous system something profound: that uncertainty isn't danger. It's just space. Space for the market to move. Space for probability to unfold. Space for you to breathe. The drill I practiced wasn't about reward. It was about exposure. I forced myself to sit through the discomfort, to feel the heat without reacting. At first it felt unbearable, then it became familiar, and finally it became power. Because once you can sit through fear, fear loses its grip. It's like weight training for the mind. Every rep of patience builds strength. And one day you look at a fluctuating trade and feel nothing. No excitement, no dread, just awareness. That's when you know you've changed. The most dangerous moment in trading isn't when you lose, it's when you almost win. Because that's when your brain floods with dopamine, the illusion of control, the taste of success. And dopamine blinds you. It convinces you that taking profit early is victory. But that's not victory, that's relief. And relief is temporary. The market teaches in loops. You'll repeat the same mistakes until you feel them deeply enough to learn. Every impatient trade is a lesson disguised as pain. Every regret is feedback. You don't escape the loop until you face the emotion instead of running from it. For a long time, I thought I could fix impatience by tweaking my system. New entry rules, new indicators, new pairs. But it didn't matter. Because the variable wasn't the market, it was me. And the only way to fix me was to sit in the fire without flinching. So I started journaling my emotions like data. Every time I wanted to act, I wrote it down: what I felt, what I feared, what I believed would happen if I didn't act. Patterns began to appear. I wasn't impatient randomly. It always came from one of two places: fear of loss or fear of missing out. Both are born from scarcity, the belief that I need to protect or chase something. But trading rewards abundance, the mindset that opportunities never end, that outcomes are irrelevant, that my job is only to execute. Patience, I learned, is not a moral virtue. It's a performance edge. Every time you wait properly, your expected return increases. Not because the trade changes, but because your decisions align with probability. The market is a machine that transfers wealth from the impulsive to the patient. And patience is expensive. It costs comfort, control, and ego. It demands that you trust something you can't see yet. It demands faith in math when emotion screams louder. But that cost, that's the price of consistency. There's a quiet liberation in realizing that you don't need to win every trade. You just need to follow your edge enough times for probability to reveal itself. And that edge is fragile. It disappears the moment you let emotion interfere. That's why the patience drill works. It isn't about perfect setups. It's about training your nervous system to handle boredom, fear, and temptation without breaking. It's about rewiring yourself to act only from logic, not from panic. The first time I truly held a trade until my plan said exit, not my fear, it felt like enlightenment. Not because I made more money, but because I felt free. Free from the constant urge to intervene. Free from the illusion that control equals safety. That moment changed everything. From then on, trading became a meditation. Every candle was a breath. Every pullback was a test of awareness. And every time I resisted the impulse to act, I became a little more detached. Not indifferent, but centered. Discipline isn't about forcing obedience. It's about remembering who you are when emotion tries to make you forget. When fear whispers, "Get out now," you remember the version of you who built the plan in clarity. You honor that version. You hold for him. You hold for your growth. Because the real RR isn't risk to reward. It's reaction to reality. How you respond when the outcome isn't yet decided, that's your true metric. If you can stay neutral, you're already ahead of 95% of traders. They chase results. You cultivate presence. That's the secret. Patience isn't passive, it's powerful. It's the stillness that allows precision. It's the silence between thoughts where clarity lives. When you master patience, you don't control the market. You control yourself. And that's enough. There came a point when I stopped asking, how can I make more? And started asking, how can I interfere less? Because the truth is, trading isn't about control. It's about cooperation with randomness, with uncertainty, with the flow of time. The more I tried to control it, the more I lost. The more I surrendered to process, the more it gave. That word surrender used to scare me. It sounded like weakness, like giving up. But surrender in trading isn't submission. It's alignment. It's the recognition that I can't dictate what the market does, only how I respond to it. Once I truly absorbed that, everything changed. Losses stopped feeling like punishment. Wins stopped feeling like validation. They became neutral data points, proof that my system was a live, breathing probability through me. And I became calm. When you hold through uncertainty, you're not proving you're brave. You're proving you trust your preparation. You're saying, I did my job. Now I let the market do its part. That's discipline. That's maturity. That's where trading transforms from gambling into mastery. It's ironic, the more detached I became from the outcome, the better my outcomes got. When you stop trying to force results, you act with clarity. You stop cutting winners short out of fear. You stop holding losers out of hope. You just execute. You let the market decide. But detachment doesn't mean indifference. It's not cold or robotic. It's peaceful. It's understanding that success in trading isn't about emotional highs. It's about emotional neutrality. Because the same emotion that makes you euphoric on a win will destroy you on a loss. And the market, it doesn't differentiate, it amplifies whatever you bring to it. There was a morning when I woke up to see a trade had hit target overnight. 3R perfect execution. I didn't feel excitement. I didn't feel pride. I just smiled and thought that's what the plan was meant to do. Then I moved on with my day. That's when I realized I was finally becoming the trader I wanted to be. I wasn't chasing adrenaline anymore. I was chasing alignment. Because when you're aligned, when your thoughts, emotions, and actions all point in the same direction, trading stops being chaos. It becomes art. And patience is the brush. It paints consistency across the canvas of randomness. Every moment of stillness becomes a stroke of mastery. You start to see the market differently, not as a predator, not as an enemy, but as a teacher. It's showing you where you're reactive. It's revealing where you still lack faith in yourself. Every trade becomes a mirror. You can't hide from your impulses. You can only observe them. Some days I'd enter a trade and instantly feel that twitch in my chest, the urge to check, to monitor, to control. And instead of fighting it, I'd watch it. I'd breathe into it. And I'd whisper to myself, it's just energy. Let it pass. Because every emotion is temporary. If you don't feed it, it dissolves. And when it dissolves, you see clearly. Again, that's what patience really is, emotional fasting. You stop feeding fear. You stop feeding greed. You let them rise, then you let them go. The patience drill became more than a trading exercise. It became a way of living. I started noticing how impatience bled into everything. Conversations, relationships, goals. How I rushed to fix discomfort instead of feeling it. How I tried to control people, outcomes, and timing. And the more I practiced patience in trading, the more I practiced it in life. I began to slow down, to breathe deeper, to accept that not everything requires my intervention. Its strange patience teaches humility. You begin to respect time again. You start to realize that growth doesn't happen when you act, it happens when you wait with awareness. Just like a seed doesn't need constant digging up to check its progress. It just needs space, light, consistency. That's how trading works too. Your edge needs time to bloom, but most traders dig it up before it can grow. They switch strategies, systems, timeframes, always searching for control. They never realize that consistency isn't found in the system. It's found in the self. When you master patience, you create emotional distance from the chaos. And in that distance, you can finally see truth. The truth that your job isn't to predict, it's to participate, to risk, to wait, to surrender. I used to think my greatest enemy was volatility. But volatility was never the problem. My reaction to it was. Once I learned to let volatility exist without taking it personally, it stopped hurting me. It just became background noise. And when you stop reacting to noise, you start hearing signal. The subtle rhythm beneath randomness. That's where the edge lives. Patience gives you access to that rhythm. It slows your perception, stretches time. You start to notice details you used to miss, not in price, but in yourself. The tiny shifts in emotion before you act, the quiet assumptions behind your decisions. You become both trader and observer, actor, and witness. And from that awareness, control emerges naturally. Not the kind of control that forces outcomes, but the kind that guides intention. You stop forcing the market to fit your will. You align your will with what is. That's surrender. And surrender is not weakness. It's intelligence. It's realizing that resistance is wasted energy, that the only real control you have is over your response. So I hold, not because I'm certain, but because I'm grounded in uncertainty, because I've accepted that discomfort is part of the process, that patience isn't waiting for ease, it's finding peace in tension. And the more I live this truth, the quieter my mind becomes, the more space I find between thought and action, between impulse and decision. That space is where discipline lives. When you live in that space, you stop chasing, you start allowing, you stop needing the market to behave, you start trusting it to unfold. And in that trust, you find freedom, because patience isn't about time. It's about presence. When you're truly present, waiting disappears. You're no longer counting candles or seconds. You're simply here, aware, centered, observing. And that's the mindset of mastery. Sometimes I look back and wonder how many trades I ruined, not because I was wrong, but because I couldn't wait. How many times I cut short the very moves that could have built my future, all because I couldn't stand the silence. Silence is a mirror. When there's nothing happening on the screen, everything happening inside you becomes louder. The fear, the hope, the doubt, they all rise to the surface. And you realize the real market isn't out there. It's in here, inside your chest, inside your mind. Every candle tests not your knowledge, but your nervous system. Every hesitation, every premature click, it's just the mind trying to escape uncertainty. But uncertainty isn't the enemy. It's the field where mastery grows. The patience drill taught me that. It wasn't about testing the market. It was about testing myself. How long could I sit in that discomfort? How long could I watch chaos without becoming part of it? Every trade became a meditation on letting go. At some point, I stopped labeling trades as good or bad, because even the losses taught me something. A loss that reveals impatience is more valuable than a win that hides it. You learn more from the moments you fold too soon than from the times you hold and win, because those moments show you exactly where you still don't trust yourself. And that's what this entire journey is about: trust. Not in the market, not in indicators, but in the part of you that knows when to act and when to wait. When that trust deepens, Something inside you settles. The need to chase fades. The urgency dissolves. You no longer need to force success because you've realized it's inevitable if you just stay patient long enough. I remember one trade that changed me forever. It wasn't big 1% risk, nothing special, but it was the first time I felt absolute calm from entry to exit. No anxiety, no checking, no emotional spike. I placed the trade, took a walk, made coffee, came back, and it had hit target. Not because the setup was different, because I was different. That moment was freedom. Freedom from obsession. Freedom from the constant noise in my head. Freedom from the illusion that I need to control what I can't. That's what patience really gives you, freedom. Not financial, not external. Inner freedom. The kind that makes you breathe easier, move slower, think clearer. It spills into everything else. You start living differently. You stop reacting to life the same way you used to react to price. You stop needing answers immediately. You stop fearing waiting. Because waiting, you realize, is not wasted time. It's where all progress happens. Seeds grow in silence. Edges mature in silence. Traders evolve in silence. The market doesn't reward noise. It rewards stillness. The ability to wait without losing balance, to act without losing peace. To hold when it's time to hold, and fold when it's time to fold, not from emotion, but from clarity. That's the essence of discipline, not perfection, presence, the willingness to show up, follow your process, and trust the math. The humility to let go of what you can't control, and the wisdom to know the difference. Some days I still feel it, that twitch, that old urge to check, to interfere, to just adjust a little. But now I smile because I recognize the voice. It's the ghost of an old trader who used to think control was safety. And I thank him. Because without his mistakes, I'd never have learned the art of waiting. You can't fake patience. It's earned through experience, through hundreds of tiny surrenders, each one carving away a layer of fear. You build it trade by trade, breath by breath, moment by moment, until one day you look back and realize you no longer trade the market for profit. You trade the market for peace. Because when you truly master patience, profit becomes a byproduct. You stop chasing. You start allowing. You stop measuring yourself by outcomes. You start measuring yourself by alignment, by how faithfully you stayed true to your plan regardless of the result. And that's the paradox. When you stop needing the trade to work, it starts working more often because you've removed the chaos not from the chart, but from within you. That's when trading becomes quiet, almost sacred, a conversation between your discipline and the market's randomness. You speak in risk and reward, you listen in silence, and every so often the market answers. When I sit down to trade now, I remind myself of a simple truth. My job isn't to win. My job is to wait well, to execute, to observe, to surrender, to hold when holding aligns with reason, and fold when folding aligns with truth. That's all. Because mastery isn't in the profit curve. It's in the nervous system that no longer panics. It's in the heart that no longer needs certainty. It's in the mind that can hold stillness longer than others can bear it. That's the patience drill, not a technique, a transformation. The slow evolution from reactive to reflective, from fearful to faithful, from desperate to disciplined. And once you experience that shift, once you realize that time is not your enemy, that waiting is not punishment, you become untouchable. The market can move however it wants. You stay still. You stay ready. You stay patient because you finally understand the real trade isn't in your charts. It's in your mind. And when you master that, you no longer need to choose between hold or fold. You simply know and you wait in peace. In the end, every trade fades. The charts reset. The profits, the losses, they blur into memory. But what stays is who you became through the waiting. the discipline you forged in silence, the patience you built in discomfort, the self-trust that no market can take away. That's the real reward, not the numbers, not the wins, the stillness. Because the moment you stop needing the market to make you whole, you become whole on your own. And that's when the market starts to mirror that peace back to you. So breathe, wait, trust your preparation, and remember, you don't trade charts, you trade your own psychology. And when you master that, you've already won. This is Mind Over Markets.